There are these invisible systems all around us, architectures of influence that are working just beneath the surface of our daily lives, quietly setting up hierarchies and deciding who wins and who loses. Today, we're not just glancing at social dynamics. Oh no, we are going to dissect the actual mechanics of control, the hidden script that's running in the background, telling us who leads and who follows. So let's dive in and explore the architecture of dominance.
This quote, it just cuts right to the heart of this huge paradox, doesn't it? See, obvious control is actually pretty weak. It just makes people want to rebel. The most powerful kind of submission isn't something that's demanded from you. It's something you perform, willingly, over and over again. It's all those small, daily acts of deference that, bit by bit, carve a deep groove in your brain. This is exactly how your agency gets chipped away, not with some big, dramatic event, but with the quiet, routine click of a door you've opened for someone else.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to spot the pattern of the daily submission. Then, we'll take apart the architecture of control. After that, we'll dig into the heuristic of habit to really get why our brains are so susceptible to this stuff. We'll diagnose the consequences with the performer's paradox, and then finally, we'll flip the whole thing on its head by learning how to audit the script itself.
Okay, let's start our investigation with a pattern that's, well, it's incredibly common and honestly a little unsettling. It's that subtle, creeping feeling you get when you realize the rhythm of your day-to-day life isn't really yours anymore. That is the daily submission. It's where your own routine gets weaponized to slowly take apart your authority from the inside.
And at the core of all this is one key idea, the dominance ritual. Now, this isn't about tradition or just being polite. It is a system. It's a carefully engineered feedback loop that takes one of our most basic human needs, our brain's desire to run on autopilot with habits, and it turns that need directly against our own free will. The conflict is right there, the comfort of a predictable routine versus the energy it takes to stand your ground. And the person building this ritual, they know this tension exists and they use it like a surgeon.
So what does this actually look like? Picture a top performer who's trapped in this default pattern of behavior. In a meeting, they're about to share a huge insight, but the ritual architect jumps in to ask a clarifying question that completely hijacks the conversation. The high performer, wanting to be a team player, lets it happen. Then it happens again and again. Pretty soon, they subconsciously learn to make their point shorter, to wait for a turn that just never comes. Their own professionalism, their desire to keep things moving smoothly, becomes the very weapon used to sideline them. They're not a leader anymore, they're just a cog in someone else's machine.
And this, right here, this is the critical point of failure. It's not one big moment. It's the quiet, insidious power of a routine. Every single time you follow that script just to avoid a little social awkwardness, you're tightening a leash made of habit. You're putting the flow of the group above your own voice. You've basically just handed someone else the remote control to your own status, not in one grand gesture, but through 1,000 tiny acts of compliance. The script has become your reality. Okay, so we've identified the pattern. Now let's get into the mechanics. How is this architecture actually built? We're about to go into full-on diagnostic mode, breaking down the exact 4-part sequence used to engineer this seizure of control. This is the blueprint.
Now, this process is a deliberate, calculated escalation. It moves from the physical world right into the psychological. It's not random at all. It's a strategy designed to systematically break down your agency. It starts by claiming physical space. Then it messes with your perception of time. Then it grabs control of the conversation. And finally, it cements a whole new reality where it's in charge. Let's break down each step.
Step 1 is all about geography. The person in control doesn't just walk into a room, they conquer it. They'll put their laptop right in the middle of the table, spread their papers everywhere, or stand in a way that makes you have to walk around them. The effect this has in your brain is huge. We evolved to connect territory with survival. So when you instinctively give up space, scooting your chair over, moving your notebook, you're sending a primal signal to your own brain that you're in the weaker position. You're basically hardwiring their dominance into the environment. Controlling space naturally leads to step 2, the temporal break phase. This is about owning the clock. The architect to this ritual will be consistently late to meetings they didn't schedule, but they'll demand you be on time for theirs. They'll take a phone call or check emails right in the middle of your big presentation, basically hitting the pause button on your reality for theirs. To your brain's survival instincts, the person who controls time controls everything. And complaining about it feels petty, right? It feels like you're disrupting the flow.
So your brain, always looking for the easy way out, just accepts this new reality. And just like that, a power dynamic is set.
And that flows right into step 3, the interruption sequence. Once your brain is tired out from dealing with all the space and time games, it's vulnerable. The influencer doesn't have to yell at you, they just use these soft interruptions. A little nod and a right, and to add to that before completely changing the subject away from your point. This is classic conditioning. The interruption acts like a small punishment for speaking, so your brain quickly learns silence equals safety, and speaking up equals the stress of getting cut off. You start to censor yourself without even realizing it.
And that brings us to the final stage, the checkmate, the behavioral monopoly. The whole system has now flipped from mutual respect to what the source material calls habit-based rent-seeking. What does that mean? It means status isn't earned by contributing anymore. It's just collected by keeping the routine going. The influencer is now the default setting for the group's reality. People look to them to end meetings. Their opinion gets asked on stuff they know nothing about. The script is now the only play the group knows.
Okay, so that's the how, but the really big question is why. Why is this system so incredibly effective even against really, really smart people? The answer isn't that we're not logical, it's that our biology has a loophole. We need to look at the deep psychological vulnerabilities that these rituals are perfectly designed to exploit.
So here you can see the battle going on inside our own heads. Your brain, at its core, is an efficiency machine. It wants to save energy. Confronting someone, even subtly, burns a ton of mental fuel. It creates a social glitch that feels risky and awkward, and you have no idea how it'll turn out. But following a smooth routine, that's cheap. It feels right, it feels safe, and it's predictable. The manipulator knows this and intentionally makes it more and more taxing to break the habit, making submission the literal path of least resistance for your brain.
And that gets us to a really critical question about how we're wired. Why does this shortcut even exist? Why does our brain automatically assume that what's easy and familiar is also what's correct and safe? Well, it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's a survival mechanism that, in our complex social world, becomes a massive vulnerability just waiting to be hijacked.
The master key that unlocks this whole thing is called the heuristic of fluency. It's the brain's tendency to mistake how easy something is to process for how true it is. Because following the routine is cognitively fluent, it's smooth, it's effortless, our brain just flags it as the right thing to do. It's the same reason a catchy phrase like, "an apple a day keeps the doctor away," feels truer than it might be. It just flows. This shortcut is why these dominance rituals can work on anyone. It completely bypasses your rational mind and hits you at a much deeper, more primitive level.
And to seal the deal, we have to justify our own submission to ourselves. This is where cognitive dissonance comes into play. To solve that nagging conflict between I'm a smart, capable person and I'm just following orders, we invent a new story. We tell ourselves, oh, that's just their personality, or, well, that's just how things are done here. We rationalize it all away instead of admitting that we're being managed. And just like that, the trap is locked from the inside.
So, we've looked at the architecture and the psychology. Now let's switch gears to diagnosis. How can you tell when you're actually caught in one of these traps? This part is all about giving you the tools to see these patterns clearly in your own world.
The first huge red flag is something called the Reciprocity-Routine disconnection. You can feel this gap long before you can put it into words. It's that growing feeling that the work you're putting in, your effort, your expertise, your professionalism, is way out of whack with the status and respect you're getting back. When that gap becomes obvious, when you're putting in 90% and getting back 20%, you're not in a partnership anymore. You're just servicing a routine.
And this leads us to this really painful central irony, the performer's paradox. This is a crucial piece of the puzzle. The very person who is the most dedicated, the most professional, the most committed, is often the last one to see what's happening. Why? Because their whole identity is wrapped up in playing their part in the script perfectly. Their commitment to the performance literally blinds them to the fact that the play itself is rigged.
And the final cost of this paradox is massive. This obsession with the routine, with how things are done, effectively demotes a high performer. It turns them from a star player who shapes the game into a background extra in a movie they don't even get to direct. They're left with a pretty stark choice: stay and play the reliable subordinate role, or rip up the script and reclaim their own unpredictable agency.
Which brings us to our conclusion. Now that we've taken apart this whole architecture of dominance, the final step isn't to learn some new tactic or a counter script, it's about a fundamental shift in how you see things. from being a player in the game to becoming an auditor of the game itself.
Getting your agency back starts with one thing: awareness. It means you stop focusing on just performing your act perfectly and you start auditing the symmetry of every interaction. Is what you're giving coming back to you? It's about really understanding that a habit isn't the same as honor. A routine is not the same as respect. And it's knowing that true, real power doesn't need to build all these complicated rituals to feel safe. And here's the best part: this whole system is incredibly fragile. It runs entirely on your unconscious participation. The second you see it for what it is, the entire structure starts to fall apart.
At the end of the day, the person who owns the interaction script is the one who owns the future. So the answer isn't to learn a new dance or a better beat. It's to step back, put down the script you were handed, and start auditing the entire play. Because real agency doesn't come from playing your part well. It comes from realizing you have the power to write your own. Stop following the beat. Start auditing the script.